SCP Containment Breach is a horror game that contains various monsters, with the goal being not to get killed by them. The game has become widely known for its extremely terrifying concept, and has grown a massive popularity over the following years. The idea of a containment breach of various monsters, and making that into a proper game, is amazing. Ever since the game was released back in 2012, the game has since then become a staple of the horror genre, with almost endless amounts of movies, workshop mods, YouTube videos, etc.
Today we're playing 3008. We're playing it.
With that being said though, another category of SCP is also occasionally produced. Horrible clones and knockoffs off of it. Now, although there are actually some good spin-offs off of the original title, most unfortunately are nothing more than white noise, and in general are just really bad. But why? Well, today, I want to answer that exact question, and see if any of them are actually any good. I'm going to be going into the App Store and looking at the variety of SCP games on there. So without further ado, let's take a look at some trash SCP games. The first game we'll be playing is SCP-096 Modest, a game that has you run away from the skinny tall man and see how long you survive. Scrolling down, the description of this game reads, Modest escape from the laboratory, but if you can't escape from it, Object 96 is an emotionally disturbed mutant emitting screams, moans, and cries. Most of the time he spends sitting against the wall, muttering incoherently in front of him and covering his face with his hands. Threat at the time of the outburst of aggression caused by, in most cases, closely examining his face. What? Okay, so ignoring the broken English, according to the developer, who I can only assume is from Russia, the lore is that your name is Modest and you're trying to escape Object 96. Actually, wait, no. Apparently, the SCP is named Modest, not the character. What? We're not even in this game, and the lore is already really weird. The game starts with you in a room underground. There are two places for you to go, but whichever way you choose will cause an alarm to go off, alerting that Object 96 has broken out of the facility. Once the alarm goes off, the current objective is to survive for 7 minutes until rescue comes. Great. So one thing that the game changes about 096 is his behavior. In the game, he will patrol around the map while making loud grunting noises, as opposed to the original behavior of just weeping and staying close to one room.
Ah! No!
Naturally, if you look at him, he will start to chase after you and kill you. But for whatever reason, he doesn't actually start crying for a minute before chasing you. He just instantly starts running after you the moment you look at him. SCP-096 will also emanate glowing eyes when he's around you. Not only will 096, Modest, be activated upon being looked at, but it also appears that he reacts heavily to sound, as seen by this volume radar here on the screen. Make too much noise nearby, and it will start to run and chase you. Of course, not before morphing into a few walls and slipping on a few corners. Speaking of him killing you, by the way, you never actually get to see him kill you, because unless you have an ad blocker, every time you die by him, an ad will play. Which brings us to our next point. An ad will play if you literally do anything. It doesn't matter if you get killed by the SCP, win the game, or even go into the menu. If you do anything outside of the gameplay, then you will just get an ad about some weird dinosaur game. I understand that YouTube has ads when watching videos, but mobile game ads are like the equivalent of you watching this video and exiting out to write a comment, only for you to get a 30-second ad about a creepy stickman game. Even a review on this game talks about this. Ignoring all of the immersion-breaking ads, there's also another huge flaw of this game too. And that is, you can literally just stand in a corner and pretty much win the game. Remember, in order to lose, you either have to get 096 to hear you, or look up and stare at him. And considering the current objective is to hide for 7 minutes, we can literally just stand in a corner and look down and pretty much just win the game. Oh no, the spooky white man came out of his cage. Anyways, time to go in this corner and look at some YouTube videos.
Hello, Doctor?
Have you caught it yet?
Yes. Could we please...
Bro, what? You don't even have to stay in the corner too to win the game. You could also even stay on a ladder and just stay there for the rest of the 7 minutes. But whatever. What happens when the timer actually runs out? Well, when it does eventually run out, a door is unlocked and now you have to find it. Yeah, remember that thing you heard at the intercom saying how a rescue party was coming? Nah, forget it. Just find a door and you'll be fine. So for the last remaining bit of this game, you have to get out of the corner and, like I said, find a door. This was actually rather confusing since there were multiple doors around the area that looked the exact same. Once I did eventually find the right door, I could finally leave. Oh. Well, as it turns out, you don't actually leave and you just get killed by 096. After that, you respawn where you last were and the game restarts. Yay! Looking at the App Store, it appears that this game has 156 ratings that rounds up to a 4.0. The game is rated 12+, and it looks like it was updated over 2 years ago. Well, that's about all I have to say for this game. Let's move on and see what else we can find. So for our next game, let's take a look at SCP-682, a game that has you run away and attempt to contain one of the SCPs. Looking at the game in the App Store, it appears that this game has just 9 ratings with a 3.7 out of 5. In the menu, it looks as if this game actually supports multiplayer, being able to start a server with a max of 4 players. Naturally, when looking at the server list, I found no servers. Who would have guessed? So it looks like I'll be playing SCP-682 by myself.
Grabbing pills.
Upon spawning in, I immediately noticed one extreme glitch in this game. You can see your own player model outside of you. You see, upon walking around, it looks as if your player model isn't even connected to your camera, meaning that every time you play an animation, chances are you might see your head from behind. This is extremely annoying, as every time I try to run, 30% of my screen is covered up by my own character. You can even see your player model while standing still. It's strange too, because looking at the preview shots, it appears that the glitch is not present. So I can only imagine it must have been some kind of glitch when the game got updated. Moving on, the gameplay revolves around you trying to run away from the spooky reptile creature. The objective of this game is to try and contain it, and fill up the chamber with a bunch of acid. Why give 682 a bunch of acid? I don't know. The SCP in this game, while not as big as the original version, is incredibly fast and can kill you in only one bite. Every time you die from 682, the screen becomes really janky and it takes a while to respawn, making each death just kind of awkward as 682 just stands still for 20 seconds. The gun that you have in this game won't be able to kill the monster, but it can slow it down as well as having lots of ammo for it. But why do that? Yeah, you can slow it down, but in return you're just standing still too. And even when he's slowed down, he's still running really fast. So what's the point? It seems as though 682 can just detect wherever you are no matter how far away you are from it, as the moment you spawn in, it's already coming for you at Mach 5. When the SCP is near, the screen begins to shake and the footsteps get louder. The SCP always knowing where you are makes this game unnecessarily hectic, as there's no breathing room to try and hide from 682. There's also other elements in this game too, like being able to watch the cameras, but again, it's redundant since by the time you look at the cameras, the SCP will already be behind you and kill you instantly. Reading the description of this game, it's noted that this was inspired by another 682 game on PC. So if you've seen that game, just think of this one as the same thing, but the mobile variant, and also a lot worse. Anyways, being a simple premise, once the SCP is in, we flood acid in his chamber, and then we win the game. Hooray. And yeah, that's pretty much the entire game. Looking at the reviews of this game, the first 3/2 of the reviews were talking about how great it was and gave it a 5-star. However, on the other hand, the left side of the reviews gave it a 1-star, saying things like game is unplayable, glitch, and even the worst game ever. So make of that what you will. And also, this game is somehow half a gigabyte big. How? The game was incredibly simple, and there wasn't really many things to process, so that's kind of strange. But yeah, in short, do not play this game. The third game we'll be playing is SCP-087 Road to Hell, which is basically just going downstairs endlessly until spooky jumpscares happen. The description of this game says, "Welcome to the first test of fear. You are guilty and you have to task the test all the possibilities of fear that contain Project Number 87. No one else before could cope with the current task, but you can. Sure, why not? Put me down an endless staircase to see what happens." So starting the game, it begins with a cutscene of someone speaking in Russia.
Ситуации подчинения исследования правил.
Green, what's your problem, Green? What is your...
Once the cutscene is over, you can now begin going downstairs, and you proceed to do that for the rest of the game. This being SCP-087, it's already apparent that this is going to be really boring, as the SCP itself is based on an endless staircase. And boring this game was. What makes this even worse is the fact that you walk so slow, and that there isn't even a joystick for this game. So you just end up having one of your thumbs always stay on the screen and the other trying to control the weird sensitivity. It also doesn't help that this game has a really bad night vision filter on it. Descending down into the stairs, you will start to see a lot more paranormal activity. You'll see blood on the walls, spooky shadows, and weird mummy things. There was even a point where I heard crying from a random girl. Finding her and going closer, she turns into a spooky girl with a white dress and black hair. How scary. There were even points down my descent where I completely missed the jump scare, as it played a loud noise for seemingly no reason. You start out with a full battery at floor 1, but by the end your battery gets low and starts to flicker. But don't worry, this is actually scripted, not something you need to worry about. I was extremely hesitant to continue playing this game, as really there wasn't much else to this other than spooky jump scares. But thankfully the game cut short at level 45, where a spooky model comes in and kills you. That's it. Looking at the ratings of this game, it looks like this game has over 100 ratings with a 3.3 star. The reviews of this game are also really mixed, with some saying it's good and others saying it's not scary at all. It's not even that the SCP concept is bad, it's actually really good. Going down an endless staircase is a pretty cool idea, but the problem is that when transferred to a game, it's just really boring. And it didn't help that I was walking at the pace of a snail. Welp, that's about it for this game. Let's just move on. So the last game we'll be playing is... oh, SCP Containment Breach. Yeah, the developers didn't try to alternate the name at all. It's just the same name as the actual SCP Containment Breach. However, you'll soon come to see that its gameplay is not like the original game. Spawning in, it does actually play out like the SCP Containment Breach one. You're waken up by two guards that now for some reason are in your cell, and you get taken to SCP-173. Okay, so the first thing to note here is that this game is way too dark. And Christ, what is this blue filter on my screen? So yeah, this game looks pretty awful. Not only do you not have a flashlight to be able to look around the areas, but they are also lovely coated with a hideous blue filter on top of it. And it also doesn't help that we have to run away from a spooky SCP, with the SCP in question being SCP-137? Okay, so they either didn't want to get copyrighted, or they just straight up misspelled it, as it's actually just 173, not 137. The menu says that there will be more levels soon, but the last update that this game ever got was 2 years ago, so it looks like we can only play the 137 level instead. But yeah, like the original game, you go inside a chamber with a bunch of HD criminals, and now the game starts. But unlike the actual game now turning into a free roam game, the mobile version just turns into a Slenderman copy, and now you have to collect 8 notes. Isn't that just amazing? Now usually when I play these games, unless if they are just simply too long or repetitive, I tend to, well, you know, finish them from start to end. But I kid you not, I could not find any pages anywhere. When the SCP broke out, not only was everyone dead, with no bodies strangely in sight, but the map's layout changed, consisting of a few hallways that harbor doors that needed code. Who knows, maybe there are pages or passcodes in these corners, but I wouldn't know since even at full brightness, I can't see a goddamn thing. And there's also the deal with my man SCP-137. Watch how the original SCP kills you, and then how this one kills you. Yeah. There was even a point in my playthrough where I pulled a backrooms move and just straight up walked outside of the map. I imagine there's a little bit more to this game had I collect all the pages, but like I said, I couldn't find them anywhere, nor could I find all the codes to unlock the doors. So yeah, I'm just gonna leave this game unfinished. Don't worry though, you and I probably didn't miss out on anything important. And that's all the games I'll be talking about today. There's nothing really more to be said about these games other than that they're complete garbage. Not only are these games bad, but it can also somewhat tarnish what the original game was trying to make scary. Even though there were very few SCP games I found in the App Store, all of them were pretty much the exact same. Glitchy, really bad, and all around just not really that scary. If you have a computer but don't want to play the Containment Breach games, then you should probably just resort to the unofficial multiplayer version of the game, Secret Laboratory, or better yet, a multiplayer of the actual campaign, as both of them are free and are way more enjoyable than the mobile games that I played. Well, that's about all I have to say for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you sometime in the future. Goodbye.